Growing up, my mom was great. She was so caring and loving. We could spend weekends together, just like a real family, playing board games or going on fun trips. I wasn't like the other kids in my class who all complained about how annoying their moms were. Maybe my mom was different, or maybe I was different. Either way, we had the best mother-son relationship. I felt sorry for the other kids who didn't seem to get along with their moms. But all that changed after our holiday trip to Mexico. But more on that later. Before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our crazy stories. I think I was around 15 years old at the time. My mom and dad both worked, with long hours sometimes, and so when Easter came, they felt they deserved a break. I came home from school, and that's when they surprised me and told me we were going to Mexico for a holiday. I was so happy and excited. I'd never been to Mexico before. I was so excited to get to see somewhere new, to taste the delicious food and meet some nice people. Pretty soon, we packed our things and headed off on the plane to Mexico. When we arrived, we went to the hotel, which was very luxurious and nice. That evening, we had dinner at a local restaurant where I had the best tacos I've ever tasted in my life. Literally, it was like this food had fallen from heaven. We were only in Mexico on vacation for a week, so we wanted to make the most of our time there. We went to the beach every day and we saw as many tourist attractions as we could. We ate Mexican food until our tummies were too full to stuff any more food down, and we took a lot of photos. By the end of the week, I was exhausted. Finally, the time came to go home. My dad was asleep on the bed and my mom came into the room. "I'm just going to the reception desk to check out and then we'll head to the airport. Stay here, Jack," she said. "All right, Mom," I replied. She left and she returned soon after. "Jack, hurry up," she snapped at me as soon as she entered the room. "Oh, sorry, Mom. I hurried to get my things ready." I was shocked by her sudden change in tone. "Michael, get up," Mom shouted at Dad. Mom hit Dad with a pillow pretty hard. Dad woke up suddenly and he stared at Mom. I was so shocked, my mouth fell open. I had never seen my mom hit my dad like that. What was with her? Mom didn't seem to notice Dad and my shocked expressions, and she yelled at us to get ready and head to the airport. We did as we were told, though Dad and I gave each other a look. Why had Mom changed all of a sudden? We arrived back home and I was hoping that this sudden mood that Mom was in would stop. I was hoping she was just stressed from the vacation or something, but it was far from it. Things got worse and worse. Mom would be mean to me for no good reason. One time I was in my room studying, actually doing my homework, when Mom burst in and told me to start cleaning the house. I told her I was doing work at the moment and asked if I could do it later, but she yelled at me to get up that instant. And she actually pulled me from my seat. She dragged me into the bathroom and forced me to pick up the broom. For the rest of the night, I had to clean the whole house, and I didn't even have time to finish my homework. At school the next day, my teacher got mad at me, and what could I do? I couldn't tell him my mom had forced me to clean instead of doing work. And it wasn't only that. She started acting differently too. She used to crack jokes all the time. Now, I rarely saw her smile. She used to bake a pie every Sunday. Now, she hardly ever touched the oven. I was really missing the mom from before. The mom that I had known and loved from before our trip to Mexico. When we came back, it was like she was a different person. Also, it seemed like she had lost her memories about everything before Mexico. She couldn't remember what day my birthday was or the time we all had so much fun at the water park in Spain. She couldn't even remember the name of our favorite TV show. It was like she had been replaced. To top it all off, I started to suspect that Mom was trying to ruin my relationship with my dad. You may think I was crazy, but let me tell you, Mom was doing some very suspicious things. Like one evening, I was in my room when I heard a crash downstairs. A vase had been smashed or something. Mom came out of her room and started yelling at me. She accused me of smashing the vase on purpose. "Why would you do that?" I replied in shock. "Because you're a rebellious teenage boy and that's what you kids do," yelled Mom. She told my dad to tell me off, and Dad, for some reason, did as she asked. "Jack, don't do such naughty things, all right?" said Dad sternly. "But it wasn't me," I said. "That's enough," screamed Mom. "Go to your room. You're grounded for the rest of the week." I shut my mouth and stormed off to my room. Even Dad looked a little shocked at my mom's behavior. She had never grounded me before. None of us could understand it. Why was Mom acting so different? And then something happened that changed everything forever. I was cleaning once again and was clearing out some stuff from under my parents' bed when I stumbled upon something, a diary. Out of curiosity, I opened it up and saw that it was Mom's diary. Now, I'm kind of ashamed of this next part. I know this was wrong, and at the time, I knew I shouldn't read it. But I thought maybe if I did, it would help me figure out why Mom had changed so much. And so, when I was sure no one was looking, I opened up my mom's diary and started reading. What I read made my mind explode. According to the diary, Mom was plotting to get rid of my dad. She wanted him out of the picture to inherit all of his money. And on top of all that, the diary also revealed that the reason why Mom was trying to ruin my relationship with my dad was to stop him from giving any inheritance money to me. I instantly regretted reading it. What should I do? My mom wanted to get rid of my dad. I didn't want to confront Mom because then she'd know I had read her diary. I was also sure that if I told Dad, he wouldn't believe me. Even if I showed him the diary, he would probably think I had faked it or something. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared being around Mom now. I kept watching out, and at night, sometimes I would go into their room just to make sure Dad was all right. I was getting so anxious all the time. I decided the only thing I could do was follow Mom around and spy on her. I would lie and tell her I was at a friend's house after school, when in reality I was coming home to spy on her. Sometimes I would catch her writing in her diary. Sometimes she would go out for a ride in her car and I couldn't follow her then. But she didn't seem to be doing anything out of the ordinary. I just couldn't understand any of it. And then, lo and behold, came that fateful day, the day when my whole world turned upside down. Mom was out at the store buying some groceries. Dad and I were on the couch watching TV, when suddenly a knock came at the door. I went up to get it, and when I opened the door, a woman was standing there covered in dirt and grime and looking like a homeless person. I cried out in shock, and my dad quickly joined me once he heard me shout. "Who are you?" said Dad, and he pulled me behind him. "What do you want?" I looked curiously at the woman, whom I didn't recognize at first, but then I realized that it was Mom. "Mom?" I cried. "Jack, Michael," said Mom, and she put her arms around us and hugged us. I hugged her back, and it was strange because Mom hadn't hugged us ever since Mexico. "Why are you all covered in dirt, and why do you look like you've been homeless for a year? Didn't you just go to the grocery store?" I asked. Mom took a deep breath, and she guided us into the living room. She sat us down, and that's when she revealed the truth. "Let me start at the beginning," she said. "I am a twin. I have a twin sister whose name is Amanda. I never told you this because, well, Amanda is dead. Or she was dead. I thought she was dead. When we were 20, Amanda died in a helicopter crash, but her body was never found. We assumed she was dead, but recently, on our trip to Mexico, I suddenly found her. Amanda wasn't dead at all. She told me she had gone into hiding and faked her death because some bad people were after her. Jack, do you remember when I went down to check us out of the hotel?" Mom asked. I nodded. "Well, that's when I stumbled into Amanda. She told me her story, and I was so happy because I had my sister again. But then, Amanda, out of nowhere, attacked me. She managed to restrain me and she dumped me in an alleyway. She told me that she was going to take over my life now. Then, that's when she must have gone back up to you two. Jack, Michael, you didn't realize this, but the woman who came back up into our hotel room wasn't me. It was my identical twin sister." "Oh my God," said Dad. I was shocked too. How could this have happened? "Well, I was stuck in that alleyway for a while," continued Mom. "But luckily someone found me and managed to free me. I tried to catch you at the airport, but you'd already left. When I tried to contact you, I guess Amanda must have had control of your phones because she kept blocking my number. I had no way to warn you about Amanda. So even though I had no money, I had to find my way back home. It took a while, and I'll tell you more about that adventure later, but eventually I made it home, and here I am." There were a few seconds of silence as Dad and I tried to process all this information. But then I jumped forward and hugged Mom. "I knew something was off about you, or, well, Amanda," I said. "Wait, does that mean she's my aunt?" "I'm afraid so," replied Mom. We had a huge family hug and we were so happy. But then, suddenly, my fake mom, or my actual aunt, arrived home from the grocery store. When she walked in and saw my real mom or her twin sister, she was shocked to say the least. "What are you doing here?" she said. "I could say the same about you," replied Mom. Amanda looked furious, and without warning, she leaped forward and tried to attack our mom. But Mom managed to dodge her. We restrained Amanda and called the police. I showed my parents what my aunt had written in her diary, and they had been very scared to see that. It makes me wonder what could have happened if Mom had never made it back to us. It scares me to think about it, but that doesn't matter now. All that matters is that we are now back to being a happy family, minus the crazy twin aunt that is now in prison.
The crowd behind me was cheering loudly as we watched our school's football team score again, putting us in the lead. I was busy cheering and chanting encouragement with my fellow cheerleaders when I felt someone touch my elbow. I turned around and saw Derek, one of the most popular guys at school. He wasn't a football player, he was just rich and brilliant. We chatted for a while until he asked me out on a date. I said yes because he was very cute and charming. I laughed when I saw him go back to his friends and get teased. Please take just a second to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to let us know you want more of these insane stories. The next day, I went on that date with Derek. I got all dressed up and looked like a doll when he picked me up. He was a perfect gentleman, opening the door of his car for me and opening the door of the little cafe he took me to. Sadly, the conversation wasn't that good. I found myself dozing off listening to him blabber on and on about himself for what felt like hours. He was incredibly dull. He had the personality of the color beige. He finally asked me about myself, and I was talking to him about my favorite horror movies when he had the nerve to say, "Wow, you're not like other girls, are you?" For a second, I couldn't believe he had really just said that. "And what's wrong with other girls?" I asked him. "I'm very much like other girls, and I love it." He then went on to say how he didn't mean it as a bad thing, but my mind was pretty much made up. There wasn't gonna be a second date. He was selfish, vain, and at the same time, awfully dull. Sometime later, I was in cheer practice. We were doing a human pyramid, and I was around the middle. The girl next to me was always rude. She judged the way I did my makeup and said stuff about me behind my back. The girl who went to the top was climbing, when the girl next to me nudged my arm, making my elbow buckle and the entire pyramid collapse. When we were all on the floor in pain, she had the nerve to go, "Ophelia, what the hell? It was so your fault." Seriously, what is it with these people? I immediately stood up and pointed at her as I went on a rant about everything she was always doing to me and how I always let it slide. The girls all sat wide-eyed, some visibly enjoying the drama as I called that girl out. Then she stood up too, took her hoop earrings off, which she shouldn't have been wearing during practice anyways, and strutted up to me, only to push me like a 6-year-old on a playground. I, of course, pushed her back, and soon enough, we were fighting on the floor. When the coach and principal separated us, we were both tugging on each other's hair, but then her extensions completely came off. She pretended it hurt, but I said, "Oh, please, these are barely taped to your hair. Everyone could tell you put them on wrong." Since I was the only one who did damage, though minimal, I was the only one punished. I had to stay behind after school and mop the floors of a few classrooms and the main hallway for 2 weeks. One of the cleaning ladies handed me a bucket and a mop as soon as school ended, and when classrooms were empty, I started working. I honestly didn't mind mopping. The only thing I was mad about was the other girl not being punished. I put my earbuds in and danced around while mopping the classrooms. The cleaning lady from before then came into the classroom that I had just finished cleaning, looked around, and told me to move on to the hall. I never noticed how nasty the floors were after school. I mopped and mopped, but they still didn't look clean. I didn't notice my shoelaces were untied, but I tripped over them and crashed into a locker, the mop bumping right on the lock. The locker burst open, and an old-looking notebook fell out, falling open on my freshly mopped floor. I picked it up and read the pages that were open. It was full of rumors and secrets of people in my school. Almost everyone had secrets written in that notebook, even me. How did the owner know about the time I choked on a fly while cheering? Suddenly, it clicked. You see, my school was mostly normal, but we had a leak, I guess. A couple times a week at completely random times, somebody hacked into my school's loudspeakers and in a disguised voice began telling people secrets or making up rumors about them. The amount of students who left or got expelled and teachers who got fired was unbelievable. One time, a math teacher broke down in class when the loudspeaker exposed that she was pregnant with the married principal's baby. Let's just say we have a new principal and math teacher now. The notebook was insane, though. I figured it belonged to whoever hacked into the loudspeaker. I shoved it back into the locker and wrote down the number of the locker in my phone, so I wouldn't forget which one it was. I had a plan to end this. Every day after that, I nonchalantly walked past the locker or watched it from afar, waiting to see who it belonged to. Every time I thought someone was about to open it, they simply kept walking. I had almost given up when it finally happened. I was walking out of class when Derek, the guy I went on a terrible date with, threw his arm over my shoulders and walked with me, asking me for a second chance to impress me. I wasn't amused, maybe even a little uncomfortable, but we kept walking. He said he'd walk me to class first, but he needed to go to his locker for a second. I shrugged and kept walking, but then we got closer to the locker, and my heartbeat quickened. He then proceeded to actually open the locker, and I saw him take out the notebook and put it in the back of his locker. I stood wide-eyed, not believing he was the one low-key ruining people's lives. "What?" he asked me when he noticed I was staring. I dismissed it, saying I zoned out. That day after school, I hurried up mopping the classrooms so I could go to the hallway. I mopped the dirtiest parts first so anyone walking past saw that I did do something, and then went to the locker. I jiggled it to see if it opened, but it didn't. I then started hitting the lock with my mop, and after a few tries, it popped open. The notebook was at the back, closed. This time, I opened it at the first page. It was full of names and years in various handwriting. They must have been the owners of it. I started flipping through it, and it became obvious. The notebook belonged to a senior at this school, and when they graduated, they passed it down to someone else. I also saw that the previous owners were much worse than Derek. One of them wrote in detail how they dumped a bunch of bugs into the cafeteria food and got people sick. And another wrote about how they drove a student's car into a lake. Some of them did pretty bad stuff. What freaked me out about the notebook was that some pages said things like, "If you get it, burn this book," or "It takes over you." They wrote stuff saying how the book had some sort of magic. I shut the book and stuffed it in my bag before continuing to mop. On my bike ride home, I kept thinking about the book and Derek. He had done some pretty bad stuff, gotten teachers fired and humiliated students. But he wasn't the worst of them. And honestly, he did a lot of good for the school. He often picked up garbage or volunteered at events. He tutored kids and often sat with old people at the nursing home to entertain them a little. I was conflicted. Part of me wanted him to be punished for what he'd done to people, but part of me wasn't sure he deserved a punishment. The next day I went to school, still with the notebook in my bag. I saw Derek in class. He looked different. His eyes had bags under them, and his hair was messy. He was twitching slightly, and if he spoke, he did so very loudly. He was scary. I saw him digging through his locker and bag many times, trying to find the notebook. Later, I was walking down the hall when I felt someone grab my elbow roughly and whisper in my ear, "You forgot about the security cameras, you little thief." Derek then grabbed my bag and tore it open, but I managed to snatch the book out of his hands and threw it to someone else. A game of hot potato began. Some people caught a glimpse of a page before passing it to someone else, and they looked horrified. Others took out their phones to record Derek losing his mind trying to grab the notebook, while others took pictures of the pages. Derek yelled at them to stop and to give it back. He looked like a caveman at that point. He finally grabbed hold of it, but everyone was already looking at him like he was a monster. They already had pictures and videos, so keeping the notebook private was useless. Out of nowhere, he started running, pushing people out of the way and clutching the notebook to his chest. He ran out of the school and straight into the woods. Some ran after him, but he was incredibly fast. It was as if he was possessed by something. The police were called and his parents were informed. They arranged a search party, so we all left school and went to look for him. My heart was beating incredibly fast. My blood sugar was low, so I snacked on a cereal bar as I walked through the woods with the cheer squad. I could hear people whispering about me. They thought it was my fault. They thought I had broken the school's golden boy. Then we spotted some paper in a bush. On it, someone had written "Burn it" in red ink. Ew, is that blood? The girl I got into a fight with squealed, but someone said, "Shut up, Heather." And she did indeed shut up. I saw some more paper ahead of us. I walked a bit faster than the others, following the trail. I started seeing more and more pieces of paper, all with similar stuff written on them. Then I saw Derek. We were standing on opposite sides of the creek. He was panting and barefoot. His clothes were torn and he had scratches on his face and arms, as if he had run through sharp bushes. He was clutching the notebook in one hand so tightly that his knuckles were white. We stared at each other for a few minutes. I couldn't get a single word out. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. He held the lit lighter under the notebook, and it began burning. We heard my cheer squad approaching in the distance, shouting my name. He twitched like a deer when they hear a sound in the quiet, and he dropped the book on the dry leaves. He then ran faster than ever away from me and the notebook. Something pushed me to run across the creek, not caring about slipping or getting wet, and I started stomping on the flames to extinguish them. I grabbed the partially burnt notebook, and a force seemed to draw me in. I heard voices coming from it. There was something sinister about it. I snapped out of its trance and chucked it far away into the creek to be carried away by the water. My cheer squad then ran towards me, glad to see I was okay. They saw I was upset, so we all walked back to the school. Groups of people in our town took turns searching the woods for Derek, but he was gone. Not a single trace was found. He disappeared into thin air. "Why does he always have to bring it in here?" I shouted down to my mom. "Oh, you know your brother. He just does that to get a rise out of you." As soon as I opened the door, the smell hit me like a punch in the face. How the hell does Mom allow him to live like that? Anytime I couldn't find the iPad, he was always the one who took it. All he does is play Xbox when he's home. I swear he only takes it to annoy me. I always hated going in my 13-year-old brother Johnny's room. It smelled weird and was always dark. My name is Amber, by the way, just a few months shy of turning 20. I don't understand how his room is dark even at 1 in the afternoon. When I went into his room, I made sure I had my shoes on. There were piles of clothes taller than me. I was actually able to see the iPad almost right away. The corner of it, at least. It was under a stack of books on his desk. I lifted the stack and pulled out the iPad. I didn't notice at first, though, but when I pulled out the iPad, a book that was right under it fell onto the floor. It was a notebook with the word "private" in big letters written on the front. So, of course, I was going to look at it. I know, I should respect my brother's privacy, blah, blah, blah. But let's be real. If that was you, would you look? I thought so. It's human nature, and even though my brother was kind of a human, I know I should have respected his privacy. If I'm being honest, I wish I did. As soon as I opened the cover, my stomach got knots in it. The first page started with the line, "Street Race, May 15th, 2:45 a.m. I heard the squealing tires before I even got there. As soon as I reached the corner, I watched a pair of cars race by me incredibly fast. Lots of people cheered. A few gave me weird looks. It took me a few minutes to see her idiot boyfriend's car, the black Camaro. Mom and Dad are gonna be so pissed. My idiot took the wheel, and a girl stands in the center of the street holding a pair of handkerchiefs. One in each hand. The cars sound like growling tigers as the engines are revved. The girl drops her hands and they're off. Just like the first race, they rocket past me. Amber won. That little jerk. His whole book went on like this. It was basically a record of every time I left the house. For how long, what time I came back, did I smell like booze, or anything else I was when I got back. It was shockingly detailed. Even worse, some of the goings were times when I should have technically been watching him, but instead snuck out with my boyfriend Joey. Uh-oh, that little sneak. I thought he was fast asleep when I would leave the house. After all, it was way past our bedtimes when I would go out with Joey. By the way, Mom and Dad, if you're watching or listening to this story, I love you both. Johnny is a liar and it was years ago. But back to this notebook. This was just page 1 and it got worse. So I may have gone out with my boyfriend late at night to watch him drag race down a closed-off street in his Camaro, and I may have taken the wheel myself more than a few times. Again, this may have happened. You weren't there, so you can't prove any of this happened, so there. Pretty much every move I made for the past 6 months was in there. I would be impressed by how thorough he was if I wasn't so angry. There were even notes on John, too. Joey, a jerk with a bad tattoo, worse hair, but a cool car. I remember when he gave me a swirly in school. I still hate that guy. The more I read, the more creeped out I felt. Well, Joey hates you too, you little booger, I said to myself out loud as I read the book. I literally had my own personal stalker, and we shared a bedroom wall. My mind was racing. What the hell do I do now? Do I take the book and just act like everything is normal? My heart was racing. I felt like I was being watched. My only clear thought at the moment was I need to get the hell out of there, followed almost immediately by the thought of he's behind me right now. I can feel it. Thankfully, when I turned around, I didn't see him. I grabbed the iPad and got out of the room as quickly as my legs could carry me, closing the door behind me. I felt sick. Maybe from the scare I just had, or it could be the smell of his room. I swear I smelled something that was like sour milk that's been in the sun for a month. I closed the door behind me and took in a deep breath of non-gross smelling air. I looked around to see if he was somewhere watching me. Then I went to my room. I closed the door behind me and tossed his book on the bed. I looked at the book bag for a second and then felt sick again. I picked up my phone, called Joey. I had stuff. Feel like taking me for a ride? How about right now? Oh, my dad? He's busy watching some TV show. He won't know I'm gone. See you soon. I closed my bedroom door behind me and raced down the stairs. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. I'm going to Josephine's house to study. I'll be back in a while. Before they could react, the door was already closing behind me. Before I knew I was in the passenger seat of Joey's car. As we raced down the road, weaving in and out of traffic, I felt the wind rip through my hair. Going that fast made me feel like I was flying, especially since I was positive this time he didn't know where I was. Though every second street corner we passed, I was sure I saw my brother with that damned book of his. Hey, Joey, just a random question. If someone deserves it, is it wrong to poison their food? What? Joey laughed at me as we raced. Nothing, I said, still stewing. A few hours later, I was home, and Joey slowly rolled away. When I got back inside, my mom and dad were still in the living room. When did Josephine get a Camaro? My father asked me as soon as I walked in the door. Oh, it's her brother's. He let her use it. I'm going to my room. I didn't want to think about that right now. I just wanted to do my homework. I opened my laptop and set up the iPad. I was just about to start working, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. What else is in that damn book of his? Why would he do this? What are Mom going to do? Dad will let me off with a warning and maybe a light grounding, but Mom will bring the hammer down on me. That little jerk. I may as well find out what's in there so I know what I'm going to be in trouble for, I said to myself out loud. After all, the best offense is a good defense, right? Have you ever dug deeper into something only to really wish you hadn't? That wasn't he was just writing about me, and I can't stress enough allegedly curfew breaking with Joe. He was writing about everything I did, including when I would take a shower, how long I took in the shower, what time I left for work and came back. He knew more about my life than I did. He had as much detail about my daily life as he did about my alleged racing. Reading all this made me feel sick to my stomach now. I tossed the book on my bed and ran out of my room straight towards the bathroom. I made it to the bathroom just in the nick of time. I honestly can't remember the last time that happened to me. When I was done, I cleaned myself up and headed back to my room. I still felt a little lightheaded from all that happened to me. As soon as I closed the door, I locked it. I sat on my bed with my knees pulled up to my chest and my arms wrapped around them. I was just staring at the book. I needed to get it out of here. Not just now, but for good. I can't live with this little psycho. I need to get out of this house. Maybe I can stay with Joey before I go off to college, I found myself saying out loud. For a fleeting second, an evil thought crossed my mind. I should have Joey beat him up. But I also know that my dad, who already doesn't like Joey, would beat him up. So that doesn't help anyone. I was already looking at colleges now, and I want to go to the farthest one I could. But that will still take time. I needed to move out of the house as quickly as I could. At some point, I heard the front door open downstairs. The little stalker had come back. Oh God, did he know I was in his room? I suddenly felt like my room was a jail cell and I needed out. I tossed the damn book into my book bag and took it with me. I wasn't going to leave that thing anywhere. I figured the safest place for me to be right now was with my parents. Mom and Dad were in the living room at this time watching TV. When I walked into the living room, my mom was chatting with Johnny. He had been over at a friend's house playing Xbox. I don't know if he caught the glare I was giving him, but he hardly acknowledged me when I walked in the room. "Hey, Spaz," he said to me. "Hey, loser," I replied back. My parents both acted shocked when I sat down on the sofa next to my mom. While sitting in his easy chair, I heard my dad say, "Look at this. I can't even remember the last time his princess came to watch TV with your mom and I. I just want to spend time with you guys," I told them. My parents shared a quick look from my comment as my brother walked out of the room. "So, what are you guys watching?" My mother said that it was some silly show your father loves. My father gave a look to my mom that was a mix of shock and horror at her dismissiveness. As they were chatting, I heard Johnny's door open and close. I closed my eyes and pictured Johnny rushing down the stairs with fire in his eyes looking for revenge. But it never happened. I sat there for 2 hours watching my father laugh until he had tears in his eyes over that show. If my mother rolled her eyes any harder, I'm sure she would have gotten a concussion. When I had enough, I kissed my mom and dad on the cheek and headed upstairs. I needed sleep. I crept up the stairs and past that little psycho's door. I went to my room, locked the door, and crashed out. I tossed and turned all night. The next morning, I grabbed the book bag and decided to get a bite to eat. As I left my room, I almost jumped out of my skin. Johnny was standing at my doorframe. In a cold voice, he said to me, "Do you really think I don't have any pictures of you out after curfew?" I froze. He pulled out his phone and showed me several pictures of myself behind the wheel of Joey's car and a few of me at the finish line. He went on to lay out for me exactly what would happen if he went to mom and dad. He told me that first, mom and dad would absolutely forbid me from seeing Joey ever again. They both hated Joey anyway. Then they would ground me forever, at least until I moved out, and they would no doubt stop paying for my phone and internet. My knees felt weak as I finally choked out, "What do you want?" An evil, shark-like smile crossed his face as he told me, "All of it." He meant my money. Every dime I got paid. I had saved money. It was from a job at the pizza place and my alleged winnings from the alleged races. It was all the money I had been saving for college and money I was going to use to move out even sooner. My heart was racing again. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran, looking for my dad. It was 9 a.m. on a Saturday, so I knew my dad would be in the garage working on some woodworking project. My mom was in the garden tending to her roses. I had one thing going for me, that I was hoping to work in my favor. Johnny was about a half a step behind me as I ran down the hall. In a quick motion, I opened the linen closet door as I passed it. The next sounds I heard were a thud when my brother collided with it at full speed, and a list of swear words I would never repeat. By the time I got into the garage, my dad was there working on a birdhouse. He looked at me with shock and wanted to know why I was in such a rush. I was on the verge of tears as I got in the garage to him, but I was flat out crying when I got to him. Whoa, what's the hurry, princess?" he asked me as I yanked the book out of my bag and showed it to him, trying to explain things between sobs. "I may have snuck out once or twice, but he is following me like some stalker, Daddy. I don't know why he's doing this to me." I half cried the words as I got them out. My brother entered the room just as my dad was flipping through the pages. My dad is basically a pit bull in human form. Very, very sweet, smarter than people realize, and protective. As soon as my brother was in the garage, my father gave him a look that stopped him cold. My mother entered the garage after hearing the commotion. My father and brother shared a long look. There is something my little brother forgot to realize when he was taking these detailed notes. Beyond how unquestionably creepy it is, I mean. My father caught on to it right away. If I was in trouble for breaking curfew, so was Johnny. His curfew was even earlier than mine. Of course, I'm sure my dad was less than thrilled about my shower logs, too. My father tossed the book to my mother, who told him to check out their son's hobby. He then told me to get back to my room and await sentencing. As I left, I heard him tell my brother that, "Son, you and I are about to have a conversation you will not enjoy." About an hour later, my parents knocked on my door. They both sat on my bed and laid it out. My mom was the one to give me the news. I was grounded for 3 months. Joey and I couldn't see each other during that time. But that was it. What about Johnny? Doesn't he get punished? Turns out my little jerk of a brother got it worse. He had his Xbox taken away until he cleaned his room and was grounded for 4 months. Thankfully, by the time my sentence was over, I was on my way across the country to go to college. My dad wept more than my mom. That's my story.